All right, everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to be talking about something that kind of caught all of us by surprise last night in the weekly shipments. Now, they did include fragmented signal data for 10 million credits for 50 of them. I already made that purchase. Everybody should make that purchase, especially because in the most recent update, they reduced the cost to upgrade characters from about 6.2 million crystals to 3.1. They cut it in half. That means you should have a lot more credits available. This becomes a no-brainer purchase to me. That is a must-do. If you haven't done this already, go buy it right away. That is an insane deal. Remember, anytime you're buying signal data, some other resource with credits or with something other than crystals, you're going to pay the quote-unquote, as Fat Phil calls it, the Fat Phil availability tax. You're paying a little bit more for it because it's not necessarily available with credits anywhere else. So even if you're going to pay a little bit more than maybe you'd want to, it's not crystals, it's not energy, duh. But the bigger change here was incomplete signal data and flawed signal data. Both of those costs have decreased compared to what it was before. And I'm going to show the graphic here. So you look for, and I'm going to scroll down a little bit just to give you the one-to-one so that way you don't have to go do math. When you look down here, 100 of incomplete signal data is 1,500 crystals, and flawed signal data, 50 for 1,250. If I go to my screen capture here, this is an older one. Look at that. It was 2,000 crystals and 1,500 crystals. So the shipment cost for signal data has decreased. We're going to get into this. We're going to talk about potentially why this is happening, how does it impact you as a player, and what does this mean for the game moving forward. So, with that said, please like and subscribe, comment down below. I want to give a shout to our channel members, as always, for all their support. Whether they are just on the council, they're not yet granted rank of Master or Wampa, but they are a huge part of the Fat Phil family. And of course, to my Jedi Master and Wampa members, thank you guys again for everything you do. I am honored, humbled, and blessed to be able to bring Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes content to you, and I hope that you are learning, that you find the content semi-engaging, and that it's not too many bad takes, as Egnards would say. So let's get in here, folks. Let's talk about this economy shift. All right, so one thing that I want to kind of note, one thing that I want you to kind of think about here is that there's a distinct shift, in my opinion, to... I watched Egnard's video earlier, and I have to disagree with one thing he said. He said this shift happened without any other change to the economy. I actually have to disagree with that, because I think this shift has happened with a change to the economy. Remember, with the new update, you are now able to take characters to relics before they are 7-star, like my Scorch here, who is, and again, I'm going to block out the fat face so you can see this, right? He is now relic 4, while he's only 6-star, so I still have to get him the rest of the way. I could also do the same thing with my Temple Guard, Itano, Balaba, Quiggled. I could take all of them to relics, even though they aren't yet at 7-star. That was a change that happened. So this, that was one part of this where signal data is going to become something that you will need, and I say need, I put that in quotes. I do think we will be needing it earlier in your farming process than we are used to. But the other thing that changed, if you remember, they talked about those lightspeed tokens, where the certain levels will allow you to get to relic 1, relic 3, and potentially relic 5 on those, specific characters. That is a devaluation of signal data, especially if those lightspeed tokens are handed out to you for free. So, I do think that the reduction in the cost here is significant. And I think it comes off the back of those economy changes for allowing you to get to relics earlier and the release of the lightspeed tokens. Now, with that said, I think there is something to note here. Number one, that the first layer of signal data, the fragmented pieces, nothing changed here. These stayed the same. So it's just the green and just the blue signal data. Now, the one thing that I have a bone to pick with, while this change is really nice, there is one thing I do want to mention. You need just as much of the, if you look at this graphic here, and again, I'm going to hide the fat face, you guys can see it. You need just as much of the fragmented signal data here as you do. In fact, you need less of the white than you do green and blue to get to relic 9. right? This is how much signal data you need at every single tier. If you look, you need more blue signal data than you do of any other piece. That is crazy, right? I don't think everybody recognizes that, but this is the math right here. This is broken out by relic tier. So while it's really great that they are adjusting the green and the blue in shipments, if the drop rates themselves don't change, then it does beg the question as to, is it worth to farm these resources in the cantina, right? So, and I find it very interesting that Capital Games didn't mention that this cost change was happening, which makes me wonder if there's something coming where, if there's something else, and again, let's move the face back in, makes me wonder if there's something else that's coming. Makes me wonder if we're going to be seeing more signal data needed for something else. And that could be devastating to the game. If, hey, we're reducing the shipment cost, but we're not going to change drop rates. So I'm going to show you guys just, another graphic here that I kind of put together where I started tracking my drop rates a bit. So today I spent 80 energy. That netted me 448 total energy. Here's my energy spent. I only farmed the green signal data, which ended me with 25, signal data pieces. So it's not that great. So I broke it out by 120 energy. The reason I break everything out by 120 energy is because when you do your refreshes, that's how much energy is given to you. The 120, again, obviously I did mine for the 100, but you get 120 energy. And I find that to be the easiest, as I value your cantina energy. If you frame it like this, 120 energy to me is 100 crystals. And then you can kind of break out your valuation from there. So I think that's what I would say first. So I am going to be tracking these drop rates for myself. And the reason why I did this, and I just saw my DM in Discord, so I'm going to be tracking this, but myself and Egnards have decided to collab together, and he's going to be creating it, and I just get to help analyze the data, because he was like, I hate your spreadsheets, Phil, you suck. Egnards and I are going to be tracking this data together, because we both said, if the shipment cost changes, but drop rates don't, one, we're going to then need to figure out, where is it worth it to farm your signal data? Like, if you go to, I have another spreadsheet here I'm going to share. I have this estimate for green signal data that I get 8 per 120 energy. That's my average. If you look at today, I only averaged 6.7 signal data per that energy. That is brutal, right? That is not brutal. And if you look at where I spent my refreshes on, right, these energy here, I averaged 7, green signal data per my energy, which if you come here, that means that if you look at the 7 here and you take this 7 and look at the cost, what you're going to end up with, right? If I was just to go to, where's my green signal data here? If you take this 7, and I'm going to go from A9 to A10, you're at 14.29 crystals per signal data piece, so barely any savings to the shipments. So this gets far easier to whale on signal data instead of your difference to savings in the cantina compared to buying it via shipments could be significantly less if drop rates don't change. I also, again, like I said, I found it very interesting. They didn't touch the white signal data either. Oh my gosh, either. Just the green and blue. So my speculation for why, I think number one, this is on the back of the, the Lightspeed tokens. I think it's on the back of being able to access this earlier. But what I actually think, if I have my flaming hot take here, I do think we are going to be needing more signal data, right? I think Relic 10, something is going to be on the horizon where signal data will be needed more. But I personally believe that we're going to be getting some different colors. I said this a while ago that I think introducing new colors would be smarter, similar to what they did with Kyrotech, where they made Kyrotech the new bottleneck and made core gear a lot easier to obtain. I could see the same thing happening with signal data, where you still need the white, green, and blue, but we're going to add, purple, yellow, and, pink or something, or, we're going to add, red. And Those colors are going to be for newer characters and to get to the higher tiers, and your amount that you need in the white, the green, and the blue is significantly less. Again, I don't know, right? I'm not saying that I don't know that, but you get the idea that maybe they would shift that to one, easier to work on the legacy characters, while also then now earning this new colors. Again, I don't know that for certain, but that's part of the speculation here. Is they're not changing the white. If they don't change the drop rates, it's really just a good change to the shipments. But it also then begs the question: does it change in the daily deals? If you look at the daily deals, you do the math here of the 3,200 crystals for 160 green signal data. So if we do that math here, and again, I'm going to pull out my calculator just to show you this. Bring the calculator up here. So there's the calculator, and of course it's not showing. Why would it? There it is. Okay, there's the calculator. So if you take the 3,200 crystals and divide that by 160 green signal data, there's the 20. So the daily deals have already updated for this. So I don't think this was a mistake. This was something that was coded into the game. But now, again, this does change the, how you're going to analyze these things, because of the white signal data still remains the same, and your blue signal data has changed as well. So all that analysis is going to have to change a little bit. But yeah, folks, something big is coming. What it is, I don't know that we know. I do think that we are going to have to really track drop rates to really understand the implications of this. Because again, if the drop rates don't change and it's just the shipment cost, and this is primarily just something that if you are a whale, you're going to be celebrating, and if you are, free to play, it's kind of a non-issue for you, right? I will say one last thing about this. I do think, as a player, that this is not a mistake. I do think that this will be something that you are going to need to understand how it impacts you, especially with your bonus crystals. Again, with bonus crystals, a lot of the time we would say, hey, you know what? Probably not worth it to, buy this stuff, because the canteen is that much better. If it's this close, there's some conversations to be had there that buying signal data is going to be the way to go. And maybe that goes along with being able to get your characters to those relics faster, to be able to use them in the raid, conquest, and other things. Because I do think all of this change is not just about being, again, it is player friendly, it is good, but it does, I think, raise the expectations for what CG is going to believe you are capable of doing, because the availability is there for you to take these characters to relics and utilize them. So, a little bit more to come on this. Let me know your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe, comment. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.